A couple of weeks ago, I thought I'd skip this traditional video. Thing is, at one point, a few months ago, I was busy buying a couple of extra boxes for my burgeoning collection. Formex, Christopher Ward, Pitzmann, Halios, in a collection numbering in excess of 25 watches. I was living the dream. Then some things happened in my life that made me reevaluate my priorities and experience as a collector. Also, taking into account I've reviewed 50 watches last year, which meant I was having less and less chances to wear anything I owned, I have decided to drastically cut my collection down to the smallest box I own, plus one on the wrist. Is it still a respectable collection? I certainly think so. In any case, downsizing is a really interesting exercise that I didn't think I would have the strength for. Anyway, here's my collection, starting with the watch that has spent the longest time on this wrist. Getting a rectangular watch right is maybe one of the hardest tasks for a watch designer, mainly because of how tough it is to get the proportions right. In this aspect of the overall balance, Retromatic is hard, if not impossible, to beat. Everything is perfectly proportioned, from size to thinness, from little sporty touches to the taper of the bracelet. Anyone can appreciate this is as legible a watch as any out there, but it takes wearing it to appreciate how natural it feels on the wrist. I hate wearing my watches loose, but with this one I can slide a finger between the bracelet and the wrist, yet the watch will still sit right where I want it. I honestly don't know how they did it, especially as this bracelet is not a hair nipper either. Hard to believe I'll ever get bored of this watch. As you'll get to see later on, almost half of my small collection is made of dressy watches, and the dressiest of them all is the perpetual CO5, which is actually counterintuitive, as at 41mm in diameter, this was the largest timepiece in my collection. Dressy complication watches are supposed to be relatively large though, and I believe this one feels right at home on my wrist. Not a watch I wear a lot, to be fair, but it looks like $1,000,000 and it makes me feel great whenever doing it. Especially now that Seagull have announced they will stop supplying calibers for small operations, and also knowing who has put this watch together and how well he did it, I feel just like with the sold-out Brew Retromatic, I own something exclusive, something that will never be made again. Another watch that will never be made again is the gorgeous special edition Albert Villa Eternal. A truly unique piece from one of the most underrated microbrands, this was the trope of insanity in a collection that some might say is a bit rehearsed and safe. Well, I'm a boring guy, but every once in a while I crank the volume up and let my hair down. This watch is the equivalent of David Bowie, strange yet beautiful, elegant yet eccentric, especially with its adorable yellow suede strap. From flashy to what some might say boring, this one's the only watch I regretted selling, so I bought it back. Not really, as the Trasca Commuter 36 I sold had the beautiful steel grey dial, while this one has the more conservative white dial. Nevertheless, the case diameter is still 36.5mm, which actually wears at least 1mm larger thanks to its large 31mm dial and the 20mm distance between the lugs. This is a gorgeous, versatile watch that, due to its anti-scratch coating and no-nonsense caliber, will probably outlast all the watches in my collection. From a Rolex-inspired watch to an absolute copy of a Rolex, this is my Beater watch. The Olco Special Edition of Steinhardt's Ocean 1 Vintage GMT is as close to the discontinued Rolex Freccione as any watch out there, and I'm still debating if this is a good thing or not. One of the latest entries into my collection, this was an impulse buy that ended a 3-year back and forth between wanting it for what it is and rejecting it for what it might represent. So no, it was not an impulse buy, and no, buying it didn't settle the debate. I am still questioning its place in the collection of a guy that wears his aversion to Chinese knockoffs on his sleeve, so I might end up selling it. Finally, filling up the box, watch number 6 is one I simply adore. Microbrands do many things right, but they're yet to produce a tonneau watch I would fall in love with. That's why, as I craved an elegant tonneau, I had to look at mainstream watches. To be fair, Epos is anything but mainstream, as there are microbrands like Christopher Ward or Baltic that seem to have a bigger reach than this Swiss brand. Then it might be a question of positioning, with Epos and another big favorite of mine, Ball, competing in the $2,000–$3,000 range where Longines is king. Coming back to this watch, I believe it brings a lot to the collection, and it's really hard not to pick it every day as its versatility is impressive. Before unveiling the 7th and final watch in my collection, a special mention goes to a little something I found under the Christmas tree. This gorgeous piece of history was bought by my grandfather way back in the 70s and has made its way to me some 50 years after he bought it and 90 years after it has been built. I will then safeguard it for future generations. Finally, for those that have followed my channel closely, the 7th watch is not a mystery. As I turned 50 almost 6 months ago, I wanted to celebrate that special day with a special watch, so I tracked down this Citizen Leopard. The reason it's special, besides its good looks, is that it's been worn just a couple of months after I came to this world. For the rest of my time here, I will have a companion that paralleled my story thousands of miles away, only for us to get together after half a century. I believe this is what collecting should be about, not paint by number carbon copy rows of same old. A passion should be an outlet to express one's personality rather than a new way of seeking approval, especially from strangers. I might be full of shit and come back next year with a 50-watch collection of Seiko divers and Casio plastic, but for now this is what I'm happy with. Thank you for a great 2024, on to an amazing 2025.